12 o'clock. I think it's a good time to start. So, Prynhawn Dal Baub, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alan Felsted, and I work at the School of Social Sciences here at Cardiff University. This is the first in a series of research showcase webinars organised by Propel. And each seminar draws on research carried out by leading researchers from the Propel Hub. This abbreviation, Propel Hub, you're probably thinking, what does that mean? It's short for Productivity Outcomes of Workplace Practice, Engagement and Learning. I think I've got that right, Claire. The Hub brings together leading researchers from 8 UK universities alongside the CIPD to develop practical tips and tools to help businesses take advantage of the latest insights and expertise. It's funded by the Economic and Social Research Council and focuses on supporting the development of high quality, inclusive and engaging workplaces that help tackle the UK's productivity puzzle. More about the Propel Hub can be found at a website, www.propelhub.org, which I think will be in the chat. Today, it's a great pleasure that I'm chairing this 60-minute session. The title of the talk is The Importance of Family History and Place for Trade Union Membership. It is given by Rhys Davis and Alex Bryson. Rhys is a co-director of the Wizard Institute of Social and Economic Research and Data, for short WIZARD, and the associate director of the Wales Administrative Data Research Centre. Alex is Professor of Quantitative Social Science at UCL's Social Research Institute. Together, they have produced many top-rated publications and resources, some of which you'll hear about today. But if I may, I would like to direct you to one in particular that's at the end of the Rhys's and Alex's talk. It can be found at www.wizard.ac.uk/union maps. And again, I think that's going to be in the chat. This allows you to check out the strength of unions in your postcode area. I'm emphasizing postcode area. It's a fantastic resource, great for students, a great resource, and it's well worth a look. And it highlights the importance of place history in the terms of trade union membership, the topic of their talk. They'll be speaking for around 40 minutes, and I've got a clock here to time them, and we'll therefore have around 15 to 20 minutes or so for comments, questions and answers. Please, can you all mute yourselves? I think you probably have, you know, the kind of routine nowadays, and post your comments and questions in the chat as you go along. So with no further ado, it's over to Rhys and Alex.
Thank you very much, Alan, for that introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for your interest in this lunchtime seminar. So I'm going to provide an overview of some research findings from ongoing research being undertaken at Wizard under our civil society research programme that has been exploring spatial variance in trade union membership and the mechanisms behind this. I'll take you through some findings from some recently published journal papers, as well as some other resources that we've developed, and Alan's mentioned the Union Maps webpage. I'm very pleased today to be joined by my colleague Alex Bryson from the London branch of Wizard, who is here to give his thoughts on what all this means in terms of the revitalisation and future of the labour movement. I should emphasise that Alex and I are part of a larger research team based here at Cardiff University and Wizard, exploring issues around worker voice. And our colleagues include Helen Blakely, Steve Davis, Jean Jenkins and Hugh Bynum. Right, without further ado, the motivation for this afternoon's talk. Well, we've now established that unions are good for workers generally without being bad for business in a nutshell. Unions provide workers with evidence of a pay premium. Workers who are union members are more likely to be in receipt of other types of benefits. And any evidence of the negative effects of unions on workplace performance appear to have vanished. We don't see those results coming through in empirical studies anymore. In fact, recent research has actually demonstrated that unions have a positive influence on innovation at the workplace, both in terms of the involvement of employees in innovative practices and more broadly, product and processes innovation more broadly at the workplace. So unions are good for workers and they don't appear to be bad for business. And the importance of unions has also been emphasised in the number of resources that have been produced by Propel Hub during the last 12 to 18 months. So the importance of unions in contributing to action teams, addressing underemployment, supporting access to flexible working arrangements, supporting job quality, conflict management, and achieving mutual gains at the workplace. These are all things that have been emphasised by Propel Hub colleagues in the last 12 to 18 months. So they clearly are good for workers and also good for business. Also, there's an important policy context to the research. Obviously, we have this research now that has informed many initiatives to improve the quality of work. I'm going to flag two examples of these. The role of trade unions features prominently in the work of the Scottish Fair Work Commission, and the importance of unions is important within the Scottish Fair Work framework. Even more so in Wales on the report for the report of the Wales Fair Work Commission, where trade unions are explicitly mentioned in many of the recommendations, and I've put a few of these on the screen here. Recommendations of the Wales Fair Work Commission include that a trade union is recognised for collective bargaining, and that the Welsh Government take all measures possible within its sphere of competence to support and promote trade unions and collective bargaining. And the last one there, trade union recognition for collective bargaining, actually to be included as a national indicator, so a national statistical indicator encompassing the recognition of trade unions and collective bargaining. So these are important developments in the policy arena. And certainly with the recommendations of the Fair Work Commission in Wales, they build upon the strong tradition of union membership in Wales. But we're asking this afternoon, well, are there limits to this? Why do people join trade unions? Although the evidence that trade unions have a positive effect on workers and workplaces now seems fairly concrete, there are some fundamental questions about why people join trade unions that have been overlooked. And we're going to address the issues of the importance of family and place. So just a potted history of trade union membership in the UK. Well, we can see from this figure that union membership peaked in the UK in 1979 at about 13.2 million and has subsequently declined to approximately, well, just under 7 million workers now. The overall rate of trade union membership has remained relatively stable over the last 5 years or so. So union density in 2020, approximately 1 in 4 employees were members of a trade union. However, the stability of union membership in the last few years has largely been driven by increasing union membership within the public sector. This also relates to the feminisation of the union movement and union membership. The rate of membership amongst women overtook that of men in the early 2000s, and 2005 was the tipping point. That was the year when the number of female union members in the UK exceeded that of men. By 2020, this proportion is 57% of women and 43% of males. So we're quickly heading towards a situation where there's going to be a 60-40 gender balance in terms of the composition of the union movement. So as I said, overall in the UK, approximately 1 in 4 employees are members of a trade union. However, it's long been recognised that union membership remains higher in places that are characterised by a historical legacy of trade unionism. However, whilst the literature has emphasised the importance of the local in all of this, empirical evidence has largely remained at the regional level. So, for example, probably one of the best examples of the a local exploration of trade union membership is by Thomas Holmes, an American economist, who demonstrates that higher rates of unionization in the care homes and grocery stores of West Virginia and Pennsylvania are linked to the unionization of the old coal and steel sectors in those areas. So there we have the idea of spillover, both historical spillover, how past levels of trade union membership influenced the union membership in the present period, and also sectoral spillover, how spillover can go from one sector of the economy into another. But the emphasis there is upon the local. Our statistics of trade union membership very much still focus upon the regional. What do we know in the UK? Well, in Northern Ireland, approximately 1/3 of employees are union members, approximately 33–34%. In Wales, it's about 30%, and in Scotland and Northern England, it's about 28 and 29%. So official statistics do provide more detailed estimates sometimes for particular places like Strathclyde and Merseyside, and you do get the idea that there are places within some of these areas that have even higher levels of trade union membership, but that's about as far as it goes. Well, our research wants to understand this in more detail. So Alan's mentioned, we've produced this resource called Union Maps at Wizard, and I would encourage colleagues to have a look at this after today's talk. Union Maps, great resource. It provides levels of union membership for unitary authorities and local authority districts of Great Britain, and there are approximately 400 of these. And we have measures there for union density, union presence, and union coverage. We also have information on the collective pay agreements from the annual surveyors' hours and earnings. And this chart, this map on the right-hand side is derived from Union Maps. And what can we see? Well, we can see straight away that clearly there is variance in union membership within regions. So yes, Wales is a relatively highly unionised part of the UK, but there are places within Wales that are not. Most strikingly, Powys there in the middle, in mid Wales, which is shaded in green. Scotland, again, a place which is overall characterised by high levels of trade union membership, but there are areas where it isn't. And there you see in the top right corner, Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire, where levels of union membership are quite comparable to those that we see in the south of England. And again, Yorkshire, we see that there are places in Yorkshire which are characterised by high levels of union membership to the south of Yorkshire, but across the ridings of North Yorkshire, we see that levels of union membership are low. I'd just like to bring up a poll now, or our colleague Claire will bring up a poll for you, where you can vote for where you think is the highest, which part of the UK has the highest members of highest levels of trade union membership within Great Britain. So there are 5 options there: Strathclyde, South Wales, Durham, Yorkshire, Cumbria. So take a moment and please have a vote for where you think the highest levels of trade union density are in the UK. So just give you a few more moments to vote. We have half of you have voted at the moment. We're getting towards 3/4 and we'll end the poll very, very shortly. And it looks like from the poll, we have, I think there's a strong Strathclyde contingent online this afternoon, so we'll have to factor that into the results. But we see things are fairly evenly distributed between Strathclyde, South Wales, Durham and Yorkshire. We'll end the poll now. Thank you very much, Claire. None of you have said Cumbria. Where is the most unionised place in the UK? Well, it indeed is. It's Cumbria. I'm going to close. I'm at this top poll is still coming on my screen there. So these are the most 10 unionised places of the UK. And in position 1, we have Copeland. Copeland is in Cumbria, so northwest England. 54% of people in Copeland are members of a trade union. This is due to the presence primarily of the Sellafield nuclear processing facility. Sellafield has been based in Copeland since the early 1950s and provides employment for a highly skilled and highly unionised and well-paid workforce. Union membership spills over to other sectors in the area, so we can even take the nuclear sector out of the data, and Copeland still remains the most highly unionised part of the country. And here is a prediction from an economist, which I think is guaranteed. In 100 years' time, I still think that Copeland will still be the most unionised part of Great Britain, because the muck and the filth that is underneath that ground at the Sellafield processing plant is going to take about 100 years to clear up. So this highly unionised workforce is going to be there for many decades to come. To the south of Copeland, we have Barrow-in-Furness. So this is to the southern border of Copeland. The neighbouring unitary authority is Barrow-in-Furness. And in Barrow, they're also responsible. They also have a strong interest in the nuclear sector. There's a strong history there of shipbuilding and steel, but they're the home of BAE Systems, and BAE Systems manufacture the UK's nuclear deterrent, our nuclear submarines. So high levels of union membership there also. At the bottom of the top 10 is Allerdale. Allerdale sits to the north of Copeland, Allerdale, many people in Allerdale work at the nuclear processing facility at Sellafield, but it's also where the Cumbrian coalfield used to be, extending from the town of Workington and heading northeastwards towards Carlisle. So there's a strong history of trade union membership there also. So if I was to say a single place in the UK or Great Britain that was a trade union country, it is most definitely Cumbria. Right. So what are some of the mechanisms behind this? We're going to first of all look at the importance of family. So over the last couple of decades, our understanding of trade union membership has been supported by its conceptualization as being an experience good. And Alex was a member of the research team that first developed this idea. So what is an experience good? The experience good is where the benefits of something are uncertain. And that's certainly the case with union membership. The benefits are unclear. It's uncertain what unions can do for workers, particularly for labour market entrants. It's uncertainty of what the likelihood is that you'll need to call upon the services of a union yourself. So these issues are particularly important for younger workers. So experience goods are typically promoted to workers via their either through their direct experience or trusted recommendations from family, friends, or colleagues. And this is particularly important, of course, for labour market entrants. What do we know? There are some lessons that we can learn from political science literature regarding socialization. So parents are particularly influential role models. The impressionable years are generally for those less than 25 years old. Gender matters also in terms of socialization. Daughters are more likely to pay attention to their parents than sons are. And particularly, daughters are more likely to pay attention to their mothers, and where sons do pay attention to their fathers, they're more like their parents, it's more likely to be their fathers. Also, political science literature tells us that the transmission of political values is more likely to occur where parents are more highly politicized and share the same values. But in the UK, there's limited evidence regarding the importance of intergenerational transmission for trade union membership. The most significant paper in this area was by Joe Blandon and Steve Machin in 2003, which demonstrated that young people with unionized fathers were more likely to join trade unions themselves, particularly if the fathers were active in trade unions. But the role of mothers, gender, and geographical variance wasn't considered in their paper. So that's what the first of our papers that we're going to go through this afternoon looks at. So Alex and I take data from the British Household Panel Survey, which includes questions on personal employment-related characteristics, political affiliation, and most importantly, trade union membership. We can identify young people who are living at home with their parents and then subsequently follow them up over subsequent waves of the BHPS data set. So we're able to follow the careers of these young people even after they've left home. So we can see if they subsequently become trade union members, and we can run statistical models that model the probability of union membership amongst this sample of young workers. And we're going to include controls commonly used in analysis of union membership, such as personal characteristics, job-related characteristics, occupation, industry. Voting intentions is also in the BHPS. But most importantly, we're interested in what is the separate and additional effect of parental union membership on the likelihood that these young workers will join trade unions themselves. So some results from this analysis. Now, for those who are not used to looking at regression results, the important things in this paper are that figures greater than 1 means that there's an increased likelihood of being a union member if your parents have been union members themselves, and the asterisks, they indicate increasing levels of statistical significance. So 3 stars is significance at the 1% level, 5 stars at the 2% level, and 1 star at the 10% level. And figures without an asterisk weren't significant at all. And what do we see from model 1? Well, first of all, we see that people whose parents are union members are approximately 43% more likely to be union members themselves. So there's an odds ratio there of 1.4, which is basically saying 40% more likely to be a union member themselves. The composition of parental membership also matters though. So this effect of parental membership is stronger when both parents are members as opposed to one parent being a member. So if both parents are trade union members, then you are almost 90% more likely to be a member of a trade union yourself. Gender also matters. In model 3 there, we see that these effects are stronger for daughters than they are for sons. In fact, intergenerational transmission of union membership only occurs for sons where both parents are union members, that figure of 1.526. So where both parents are union members, a son is 52% more likely to be a union member themselves. But you contrast that with daughters, where the daughters are more than twice as likely to be union members themselves if both of their parents are union members. So the number of parents who are union members matters, and the gender also matters. The next slide looks at how this effect varies between high and low areas with high and low levels of union density. So is this parental effect common across all parts of the UK, or does it really matter where there are high levels of union membership within the locality? And the results are very clear here. So in low density areas, this is model 5 now, where parents are members of unions, you don't get any intergenerational transmission of union membership. But in high density areas, the north of England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland in this case, where parents are members of unions, you do get this strong evidence of the intergenerational transmission of union memberships. Where your parents are members of the unions, the younger workers are about 67, 68% more likely to be union members themselves. Model 6 just reiterates what I said earlier, really, which means that it's this intergenerational transmission is more likely to occur where both parents are members as opposed to one parent being a member. And even within low density areas, so even in those parts of the UK which are typically characterised by low levels of trade union membership, even where both parents are members of a trade union, you don't get this strong intergenerational transmission effect. I'll go on to the second of our areas of research that we're going to talk about this afternoon, which is the persistence now of unions within coal mining areas. So within the UK, colliery villages and towns located in areas once dominated by mining are often regarded as amongst the most strongest and durable basis for the trade union movement. And on the right-hand side there's this wonderful picture of the Miners' Gala in Durham, where the people of Durham and from much further afield walk through the streets of Durham once a year behind these banners representing the old lodges and branches of the of miners' unions typically. And so we know that these places, that there's a persistence of trade union membership, but the direct effect of this on levels of trade union membership has never been directly assessed before. So we can address this by using definitions of coalfield areas based upon census data, and we explore directly how proximity to coal mining areas is associated with a continuing increase in union membership within the contemporary period. But first of all, a little bit about what was so special about mining. Well, we got some charts here highlighting that mining was always a relatively small part of the UK economy, but a very, very important part of the UK economy. Employment in mining peaked in about 1920, when about 1.2 million people were employed in mining. The employment share in mining was highest in 1923-24, approximately 6%. But this was a very, very highly unionized sector. So in 1920, almost 1 million mine workers were union members, equivalent to approximately 80% of those employed those employed in mining. The right-hand figure looks at the dominance of mining in particular geographical areas based upon data from the 1921 census. So what we see here is that miners often lived in kind of small isolated communities that they dominated. It wasn't always the case, but for example, across many areas of South Wales, North East England and the Midlands, we see that employment in mining accounted for over 70% of the local workforce within these areas. The organisation of labour was also kind of different. Mines were based upon the union movement in mining was originally based upon county-based unions, which was unique to the sector, organised around the local lodge. So the National Union of Miners was formed in 1945 from a coming together of these county-based unions. So these unions often dominated their local communities, and they dominated community institutions such as the chapels, the sports team, education, libraries. It wasn't always the case, and some mining communities were based upon company towns where the employers provided these services, but unions were often involved in many places in the fabric of these local communities. Obviously, there's a continued influence of the miners' strike. The 1984-85 miners' strike continues to shape present-day attitudes towards trade unions, and you could see that on the previous slide with the picture of the Durham Miners' Gala there. The fact that almost all mines subsequently closed within the 10 years following the 1984-85 miners' strike provided convincing evidence of the legitimacy of the struggle that the miners undertook. And so the miners' strike continues to have a symbolic influence on union membership within these coalfield areas. So identifying the coalfield effect, what have we done to do this? Well, quite simply, colleagues at Sheffield Hallam University, Christina Beattie, based at the Centre for Regional Economic and Social Research, has produced with her colleagues definitions of coalfield areas based upon the 1981 census. And it's based on a definition that is based upon 10% or more of male residents working in coal, with some flexibility to reflect local conditions within the mining sector. So this is a snapshot of the mining industry just before the miners' strike and just before the eventual decline of mining. And what we've been able to do is been able to take Christina's definition of coalfields and combine it with labour force survey data held within the Secure Research Service. As well as identifying those people who still live within the boundaries of old coalfield areas, we've been able to derive the distance to their nearest coalfields using data from the Ordnance Survey Master Map Highways network. So we can explore how rates of union membership vary with respect to the distance from coalfields. And we can also then undertake some statistical analysis to identify the persistence of a coalfield effect after controlling for other characteristics of employment in these areas within the present day. So what do we have here? Well, our coalfields are mapped out on the map on the left-hand side there. So there's 18 coalfields, including large coalfields like Fife, Ayrshire, and Lanarkshire in Scotland, South Yorkshire, and smaller coalfields also, including Kent in southeast England, and the Forest of Dean within Gloucestershire, where there was a coalfield. So what does the data tell us? What we can demonstrate by combining labour force survey data with these definitions of coalfields is how union membership declines as you move away in distance from these coalfields. So those who live within coalfields, their union membership is approximately 32%. But as you can see there, as we move further away from these coalfields, the rate of union membership declines. But it declines quite quickly and sharply. It declines within a matter of kilometres. These are not large geographical distances that are on this chart. Quite literally, we can see that levels of union membership decline within a matter of just a couple of kilometres beyond the boundaries of these coalfield areas. We can use more detailed regression techniques to examine this more formally. And again, these are odd ratios. Now, this time, odd ratios of less than 1 means that there's a negative association compared to the reference category. So our reference category here is people who are resident within mining areas. And here we're looking at the probability of union membership and how it declines as we move further away from these coalfield areas. So we can see that as we move further away, just a matter of kilometres, the likelihood of being a member of a trade union is significantly lower just within a matter of kilometres beyond the boundaries of these old coalfield areas. And you can see that as we move down down those numbers, 5 to 10 kilometres, 10 to 20, 20 to 50, that those numbers become progressively smaller. We can also see that this effect holds up if we select those people in our data set where the unions are present at their workplaces, where there's actually something to join. So this is not simply the effect of supply here. On the right-hand side column, we can see those workers where there's a trade union available for them to join at their workplace. And we still see that the likelihood of them being a trade union member declines within a matter of kilometres from the boundaries of these coalfield areas. Do these results, those results are estimated for GB as a whole. Do these results stand up when we look at more regional-based estimates? Here I've rebased the figures so that within each of these regions, Our reference category is those who reside 20 kilometres away from the boundaries of an old coalfield. And as we move from right to left, these ribbons are sloping upwards, indicating that the likelihood of being a trade union member increases as we move towards the boundaries of these coalfields. So there we see in the West Midlands, for example, at the back of this chart, we see that within the West Midlands, those people who residing within the boundaries of the old coalfield areas are 56% more likely to be a member of a trade union compared to those who live 20 kilometres away. And these patterns are relatively uniform across the different parts of the UK. There are some exceptions though, and this is where the patterns get a bit complex, because we have to acknowledge that in some parts of the UK, sorry, Great Britain, that coal mining is not the only influence that's affecting trade union membership in the current period. So we look at, on this chart, the two areas where we didn't demonstrate a kind of a nice gradual coalfield effect. In the northeast of England, we see our coalfields in Northumberland and Durham marked up with these numbers 6 and 7 respectively. And yes, for sure, there's a strong history of trade union membership in these areas. However, within this part of the world, we also have the steel and manufacturing sectors that were prominent on South Tyneside. There were other important influences on trade union membership. And so these places still have an important effect on trade union membership within the present day period. Also in Scotland, we couldn't see, so in Strathclyde, we couldn't see a nice smooth effect in terms of distance from coalfields. And here we have the coalfield areas marked 1, 2, 3, and 4. And these, as you can see on this chart, they're still very much important areas in terms of the persistence of trade union membership in the present day period. But there are other effects locally across the central belt of Scotland. There's a strong tradition of political activism on Clydeside in the early 20th century. We had the 1911 Singer sewing machine factory strike, rent strikes, anti-war activism. So there's a strong tradition of political activism on Strathclyde, which is in itself an important incubator for trade union membership. Also across the central belt of Scotland, many of these coal mining areas declined before 1981. So there's lots of coal mining areas that don't fall within our definitions of these coalfield areas as we've used by the Sheffield Hallam definition. So there are difficulties of picking these influences up, but generally speaking, we can still see that coalfield areas remain strong incubators of trade union membership in the present day period, long after employment in that industry has declined. So I'm just going to conclude with the main findings from those reports. So the results shine new light on the path dependence of union membership, the importance of both family, gender, and place. Understanding trade union membership requires a detailed geographical analysis at the sub-regional level. Broad comparisons by country or government office regions do not really get at the phenomenon of the persistence of trade union membership within local areas. The strength of intergenerational transmission in high density areas suggests that, worryingly, that children of non-members do not get converted. So yes, we have a strong effect in high density areas in terms of the intergenerational transmission of union membership, and that certainly explains the persistence of union membership in those areas. But if people living in Wales who aren't, for example, who aren't the children of union members, they don't seem to be getting converted by this. If they were, that intergenerational transmission would be watered down, and that doesn't seem to be the case. And the question in all this is, what might be the coalfields of the future capable of acting as incubators for future generations of trade union members? I'm going to pass you over to Alex now to give his thoughts on what these findings mean for the future of the trade union movement.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed, Rhys. I think I was probably as fascinated as everybody else by that presentation. I think the work that's been done is enormous. But the key point for unions moving forward, you'd think, oh, well, this might be bad news because it looks like union membership is either in the blood or in the water, as we discussed it before, something that's sort of preset, and in the case of coal mines, declining, and in the case of union membership, by and large, until very, very recently, declining. But actually, there are some takeaways here for, I'd say, for government, for unions, and for employers. For unions in particular, the experience good, which is at the heart of what we've been describing, the idea that you can only truly understand the net benefits to unionization if you know something about it up front. And it's a particular type of good. It's intangible, difficult to observe. And therefore, a little bit like going to the movies and watching a film, you rely on reports and reviews from others that you trust. Unions can do this. My favorite example, we discussed it before we came online, is the likes of Marcus Rashford. He's a trades union member. He's a member of the Professional Footballers Association. What the union movement, I think, should be doing is utilizing experiences of people like Marcus Rashford, not necessarily talking about himself, but perhaps talking about one of his colleagues who was a young Manchester United player who got injured and benefited from his trades union membership when he had to think about a change of career. That's where that trades union will come in handy. You can sell the union good using the experience of well-known individuals, not just necessarily family and friends, but highly respected individuals in pushing union membership to people, and they'll take their references seriously. Of course, the second point is it might not just be Marcus Rashford. Women are an important component now of the union movement. In fact, they are the majority. So maybe it should be Lucy Bronze, a very well-known international England football player who will also be a member of a trades union, who perhaps unions should be using. Secondly, you can shift the default position. The default position in many of these localities that Rees has been referring to, you see the highest union density in the whole of Britain, in and around 54%. Most workers are not union members, and in fact that's been growing over time. So the proportion of people who have not been experiencing the union good has been rising. But you can switch the default position. For example, there's been a debate recently, and we've referred to it in the slide here, about New Zealand. Sectoral bargaining perhaps being a requirement. Employers might have to engage with sectoral level trades union bargaining when unions reach a certain threshold at sectoral level. Why would that be important? Well, actually, the current triggers, insofar as they're used at all under the legislation in the UK, and they're particularly important in the United States under the Wagner Act, are all about workplace level organising. Very, very costly, very, very difficult to achieve. If you have a relatively low trigger point for the desire for unionisation at sectoral level, that can then switch the default position from non-union to union and engender the experience of the union good, which will have a snowballing positive effect, which runs in the opposite direction from where we've been for some time. And then finally, of course, on the employer side, maybe just because coal mines and what's the key factor that is common between Sellafields plant, between coal mines, modern day coalfield is arguably a hospital. So there are potential incubators for the future that might be important in terms of generating demand for unionisation. It's just a question of trying to find them and for unions to hook into them. So I'll stop there and hand back to you, Rees.
Thank you very much, Alex, and thank you for colleagues for listening to us this afternoon. I'm just going to finish with a couple of links there to references to the papers that we've been talking about this afternoon. And of course, there's the Union Maps resource, which I would encourage you to take a look at. We've just updated the data on Union Maps today, so it's a fresh launch of the site today, which provides our most recent data on trade union membership for small geographical areas, and also for the first time brings in data from the annual survey of hours and earnings about collective pay agreements. I hope colleagues find that to be of interest.